Tao Qian, poem on returning to dwell in the country. Tao Qian is better known as Tao Yuanming. Tao Qian was born in 365 AD into a family of poor government officials. Born in modern-day Jiuliang, Jiangxi, he was one of the most influential poets of his time. As an adult, he started a career in government service. He found it difficult to behave in the subservient manner the job required. He held at least 4 different posts in his time working for the government in order to support his impoverished family. After his sister's death and his disgust at the corruption and fighting that was taking place, he realized that life was too short to compromise his principles. Around age 35, he resigned and moved to a farm on the outskirts of a village. Upon returning home after resigning from his job, he wrote a sequence of she poems on being freed from the shackles of official life. In his later years, he spent most of his time writing poetry. He was very inspired by his surroundings. He wrote many poems about the beauty of nature and the countryside, including the poem on returning to dwell in the country. His poetry also reflects his love for farming and family. About 130 of his works survived. Most of these were about farming, which would later give him the title of Poet of the Fields. Although his poetry was not appreciated during his lifetime, it would have a significant impact on poetry from the Tang and Song dynasties. He has been described as the first great poet of Tianyuan, or fields and gardens. He wrote landscape poetry inspired by pastoral scenes, as opposed to the more popular style of that time, shan shui, mountains and rivers. The poem starts out saying that when he was younger, he did not feel in tune with the rest of society. His decision to move to the countryside seemed like a radical one to the rest of his society. The translations vary, but they all have the general message that he loves the countryside and nature. This poem is a she poem. A she poem is a type of poem that has a pattern of 5 syllables or characters per line. The first 2 lines are very literal, basically saying that he did not feel connected with the rest of society and that he loves nature. In this line, he is saying that he feels trapped in his society. In the first 30 years of his life, he was not free. Since he disliked his job in the government, he felt trapped for the time he was working. He disliked his confinement to expectations and rules and longed for freedom. This line produces imagery as well as being a metaphor. The author paints a picture of a net tangling around someone or something. He uses metaphors of animals to describe how he feels. Just like a caged bird wants to fly around and be free, he wanted to escape his social confinement. These animals are used as symbolism. These lines describe him finally escaping his confinement. He bought his farm and settled down in life simply. In these lines, he describes his simple home. He bought 10 acres of farmland and a small cottage. You can see how much he loves nature and how he describes the serenity of the scenery. These 2 lines demonstrate imagery because the author paints a clear picture in your mind. The nearest town is far away. The noise and chaos from it does not bother him. The repeated use of dim in the line, dim dim is the distant hamlet, demonstrates repetition. The repeated use of lagging in the following line also demonstrates repetition. These 2 lines demonstrate antithesis because one of the animals is up high in a bright place and the other is down low in a dark place. The animals themselves are also opposites because one of them walks on land and one of them flies. Everything is peaceful at his farm. His major problems no longer bother him. He is very happy to finally be free to live out the rest of his life how he wants. The line, "too long in a captive cage," is a metaphor for the time he spent unhappily in the city. The cage is a symbol for the time he spent unhappily working in the government. In the original Chinese, it does rhyme. This poem is important because it teaches people that they should never give up on their dreams. It also teaches people not to settle if you are not happy. Don't just take what you are given at face value. Do what gives your life meaning.